Okay. Hello, everyone. I've noticed that we have gone into allergy season, and hopefully my voice is pleasant to the listeners. A topic approached me, and so I thought about speaking about what I have termed the dance of the hidden heavens. I consider myself to be a servant of what our future deserves more than what our past believes. And pretty much like a strategist for an advanced civilization, I look at human life, I wonder what the species has access to, and then what can it do with it. I have noticed that there is a trump card. Our species has access and has a sort of hidden strategy, and if it implements this strategy, a sort of there will be an archaic revival of some sort of greatness. Now, this idea of the dance of the hidden heavens, and in the subtitle, when I say the future is world consciousness, to me, human beings have been bestowed with something that is equivalent to the gift of the gods. Imagine humanity has an opponent. This opponent is time plus the manifest forces of nature. It's as if for a little while in a universe this vast, creatures have arose that harbor a potential that is equivalent to carrying an inner world. Human beings are living in front of their eyes in one physical map, one physical outer realms. Behind their eyes, every person is the meaning of the world. It's like, yeah, the world we see is the same, but the meaning of the world is never the same when it comes to people. All right, guys, I need to get a jacket. It's a bit chilly. I'll be back. Okay, excuse the interruption. Uh, Everything's good now. We're gonna continue. So, to open up the context of this, pretty much I'm seeing the intersection of a bunch of ideas. I am seeing this concept of of heaven being the greatest potential of the individual. And to me, the greatest potential of the individual is the work of their mind. A person can look at life and be like, okay, it has an existential dimension, the body moves, and then it has an experiential dimension. The purpose of the experiential dimension of life for now is unknown, and ultimately it is unknown, but it's as if our species is too convinced by the past to think otherwise. The biggest issue and obstacle to human knowledge is how language is trying to replace direct experience. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that the mind has something it's got to do here before it exits, and the body has something to do here before it exits. As far as the mind is concerned, the body is how it's happening. To me, when I look at life existentially, I'm like, oh man, what are these 8 billion creatures gonna do? Like, what are the chances of orchestrated, efficient collective action, right? It's like the chances, it seems like pretty dull in the future right now. But when I think about the minds of human beings, it's as if like, how do you use 8 billion inner realms to build a great outer realm? To me, that is the potential of the human mind. The dance of the hidden heaven is a suggestion that behind the eyes of the person in their inner realms, they have actually seen paradise. And what paradise is a sort of efficient ultimatum, you know. If right now, who I was speaking to, like right now, I'm in the position, in the existential microphone of an embodied creature, right? I am like a body right now, an embodied creature. But if there were disembodied beings, no longer they're creatures, but disembodied beings, this talk of mine would have been completely different. The secret I have found is that if we use the model of language, there is a hidden experiential language to the world. The mystics, the yogis, the devotees have understood this. There is a heaven hiding behind the eyes of every capable mind to wonder what is the ability of just the species. To me, I don't know. My heart has been broken by the future, and it has also been, restored by the future. Moments in this life, I look at human beings, and I have this view where it's like when a creature, when let's say a species doesn't know what it deserves, then it probably doesn't deserve it. There's times where I look at the human species and I'm like, is this gonna be like a sort of immortal child's play? Is the species just gonna do whatever it wants, not realizing the 4.5 billion year opportunity to get to see what an efficient, again, collectively orchestrated movement would look like? It's as if we have seen the human being. Every person has seen the individual human archetype in the mirror. What we have not seen is the collective honor of life. It's as if when human beings, or let's say the species, is in civil war, that's another way of saying the world has a fragmented psyche. It's as if just like a person who can have multiple associations of self, in domains of balance and imbalance. It's like one planet, but the lines that are drawn in it it's as if this might be a bizarre thing I'm going to say, but it's as if nationalism is a distraction from planetarism. Rather than human beings feeling that they are part of the greatest force on earth, it's as if rather than our species attempts to fascinate. You see, to me, the concept of greatness was something it wasn't real to me when I was younger. That means the concept of greatness wasn't real. To me, I felt that, greatness is like, a party happening in another room, you know. But little did I know that greatness is the purpose of life. We have just been too shy as a species to realize it, that it's part of our birthright. It's as if the logic for advancement being the meaning of life kind of follows in this way, where it's as if the creature can fathom, it can deserve. If you can see it, there's a greater percentage of accessing. Mr. Within's attempt is really to get a species to discover, to realize that an advanced civilization is the future's birthright. To build an advanced civilization, it's pretty much you're being called upon by the future. That means there's some people, let's say, employed by the past, there's some people employed by the present, and then there's some who are employed by the future. Those who have been drawn to the future have noticed where all of life is going. Really, if the species was smart, it would shift the meaning of the structure of all civilization, based on future towards the past. It's as if not only people are, their memories, they are also based on how they decide to act in the present, becoming the memory of their future self. It's another way of saying if your future self remembered who it was, it would be you. Everybody is in a sort of conscious, I would even use the word transcendental relationship of how the future is an awareness beyond time. And the moment that awareness beyond time is found, reality doesn't need to be fragmented. You see, there's many ways. I have found at least four, I would say there's four types of enlightenment. Just to make it interesting for the New Age community. I would say there's one type of enlightenment which is focusing on the void. So the causal position is being granted a value of 0. When the causal position is 0, all effects are simulations. It's another way of saying if we think we're just the periodic table, then personalities never existed. This is the challenge. This is something that I've seen videos of like very interesting atheists destroying theists. And to me, this is the savageness of that game. The savageness of that game is the moment you say one subject is meaningless, then the whole subjective realm is being reduced. Do you see, dear listeners? This is the game of the wise on this earth. Where is attention deserving to be? To me it's so bizarre. I can't imagine 10 years, in 10 years what I'll be doing. I think these talks, probably something is gonna happen. These Mr. Within talks are kind of just If the species has an ability, it must use it. You know, the cosmos awaits. The gods of all mythologies await the great performance of creation. You know, it's like saying that somebody once said, a wise man once said that if they make you ask the wrong question, they don't have to worry about your answers. And to me, that sentence also translates into, like, imagine there's a sheep that comes to a bunch of lions and tells those lions that they are sheep. This is another way of saying, like, the political system in the country of Iran. Now, it's like a sheep that has convinced lions they are not lions. And so the lions are like, wait a minute, we can roar. What about that? And then, or let me say, not roar. It's as if the lions notice that their nature is different. But the sheep keep saying lies to keep the lions ignorant. Until suddenly the lions get hungry and they roar. This metaphor I'm trying to use here is that us thinking that we're just an object is a confusion of where existence is happening. We are very advanced events in this universal sector that is worthy of the highest honor. Do you know? It's as if you start off in life thinking that you have enemies and friends, and then you realize no. It's just nature's opportunity to exist as something. Really, the magnificence of philosophy is that it pilots the individual to the inconceivable. And when one reaches the inconceivable, life becomes a potential. you know? It's the hero's journey, but the unknown is the home. To me, our civilization 1.0 hasn't been brainwashed. Do you know all these people saying the government's brainwashing people like that? Like, to me, that's not what's happening. To me, what's happening on this planet is self-judgment. And really, to build an efficient political system, there must be all the possibilities of an efficient self. To me, it's as if what has the species been doing, not promoting advancement in all sectors. You know, like, imagine all the other planets in our solar system. They all had civilizations on it, and all these civilizations, let's say humanoid civilizations, were all competing to see who builds the biggest, castle in the outer sky, outer space. The inner sky is the hidden heaven, dear listeners. I'm just this being that has realized that we are all being regardless of what we do, but upon being for eterna, which is another way of saying, rather than starting our perspective with the psychology of a temporary being, the mighty among the human race begin to fathom what an eternal being would be like, the personality of an eternal being. And what's really fascinating is when you go to see the answer to that question, you begin to discover that it's unconditional. Perfection, Salvador Dali says, do not fear perfection, you'll never reach it, because perfection isn't a static image. It isn't a singular state in a changing world. We have beliefs have in some sense become blindfolds. a species has an ability, at least right now, like to be honest, in the outer realms, it's not like technology is that evolved. Do you know really the greatest technology that in this phase of history in 2022 is worthy? It's as if it's the era of advanced communication. Really, the purpose of human life is to shift. It's another way of saying that we're trying to take violence into imagination and bring reset the efficiency of the realm. You know, something fascinating in these talks, as I have changed as a person, the way I have viewed those who are listening to these talks, it has changed. In the Lotus Sutra, it is suggested that the Buddha, at the end of his life, when he was about to like leave this mortal world, you know, filled with suffering, you know, the Blessed One suddenly freaks out and panics and goes into a hysteria. And all of Buddha's disciples, his closest allies who are there with him, they say, "Why now, Buddha? Why are you freaking out right now?" And the Buddha shouts to his disciples, "I have made a mistake. We have all been enlightened from the beginning. Do you see why all ancient mystical yogic wisdom points to the concept of enlightenment being an instantaneous release from the possession of objects and subjects? You will discover your true nature, and it's another way of saying the ego is the shadow of the real world. Man's destiny is transcendental. It's another way of saying that, sure, human beings are being in a world for a little while, or the world is being this sort of human design for a little while. And the animate spirit, the intelligence of the planet, is not limited to the brain. You know, it's as if some person didn't know what to do, and then everybody was like, "Go find a consultant, man." And the person's like, "All right, I'll go find a consultant." And the person goes into nature, you know, in a forest beside a river, sits down, still and silent, among nature, and consults the spirit of the realm. Do you understand? Like, there is a spirit to the world. It's not just human beings have a spirit. The spirit is an activation of a part of a universal sector, really. That means it's pretty much you, like you can say this is really what spiritual eyes could imply. That it's not like you're seeing auras to people. You are seeing the presence of probabilities, like branches of dimensions. You know, there's a sort of universal law, or I shouldn't say universal, existential law of interconnected geometry in the realm. Everything that has shape and form has a sort of relationship with all the other shapes and forms it's in or it's being. You see, it's as if like a person says "my hand," but the hand is the whole body. It is one function, multidimensionalized to itself, fragmented to itself. We are not human beings in a world, which is the implication of the body, and we're not the world in the human being, which is the implication of a mind. We are how the presence, the instantaneous presence of being, in that simplicity, that's your hidden heaven, dear listener. When you are witnessing objective phenomena and subjective noumenon occurring in a moment which is edgeless in conception. To me, there are, you know, the concept of God is divine because it touches the inconceivable. To me, the concept of the unknown is divine because it touches the inconceivable. The concept of transcendence is divine because it interacts with the inconceivable. The dance of the hidden heavens is the activation of 8 billion minds in their most advanced possible way. This is the greatest Rubik's Cube, greatest puzzle in human history to solve. It is one of the most ultimate problems to solve. How do we get 8 billion blindfolded or boxed in human beings, linguistically boxed in human beings, to recognize that their presence precedes their personality? We have way more experience on this planet being an existential moment rather than being a thought that's moving in existence. People don't realize it's not, life is like a brilliant life has the intelligence of life is brilliant. You know, like somebody could be like, you know, point to, let's say, the most foolish person, and I will tell you even the fools on earth are brilliant, right? Because the idea is, what reality do we want to bring forth? What sort of processed information does the species need to consume to recalibrate its value system? You see, there's two things that are changing for every person. I find this to be universal. One is how your sense of self is changing, where the concept of life is found, and how the world is changing, where that's the context of life. Most people who suffer, their free will has not understood it has the power to shift the context of meaning. It's as if they pulled the rug under someone's feet, and it's as if you pull the context out, the concept basks in the void. You know, to me, the mystical lineage, I would tell you there has been many human beings that have went out of civilization. They have left the world. And the moment they have left, like, I shouldn't say left the world, they have left town, and it's as if they have, like, in mystical thought, there's this idea of the great renunciation. It's the renunciation of anything that a desire can arise from. It's an extremist renunciation. An extremist renunciation means the person's trying to do nothing so they can notice the divine will moving. But the issue is that genetics has a motive. Do you know? It's like you get acquainted with how your intelligence as a being is happening. You see all of it is happening in the presence of awareness. Awareness uses the senses to build worlds, and these worlds echo behind our eyes, and when they echo behind our eyes, we find parallel universes of meaning. Just the fact that a human being can remember, like, the food they ate yesterday, right? It's another way of saying that the intelligence of the human being behind its eyes can recreate, represent, and re-simulate memory. Like, there is no saying. Let's say somebody had a memory of an apple, like, falling into their hand. Right now, imagine the person lives 50 years, and in those 50 years, they have remembered that memory of an apple falling in their hand, like, in so many different variations. Eventually, the memory of the apple falling in their hand is not the original memory. You see, when you become a creature bound by information, the world defines you. But if you find that there is some mysterious component, to me, there was the greatest enlightenment, like, was really, I met the unknown, the living unknown. It's like, imagine everybody standing, temporary beings are standing in the cosmos, and eternal beings are just sitting down on chairs, relaxed. Yeah. To me, in the future, the advanced civilization will seek out the hidden heavens behind the eyes of the human species. Because we can't trust the environment, we fear the environment. Because we fear the environment, we never trust the environment. Greater systems have to be designed. Right now, more than ever, subjective engineering is the most important field. A great reset is coming. In one talk, I called it the global antenna renaissance. It's when everybody, every human being stops the shape of judgment and realizes the potential of ascribing value to reality again. Do you know? I have my own way of explaining evolution. You can say this is Mr.Within's, theory on evolution, where to me I have set 4 phases for it, where first there was the unconscious world, then there was an unconscious self, then from the unconscious self there was a conscious self, and from the conscious self there's a conscious world. That means to me the 3 phases of this model of evolution I have is like up to the present, and 1 phase of it remains. First there was just energy. Energy didn't have a personality, energy was just being energy. Somehow, due to mysterious circumstances, the body of a creature came into design. Somehow. Whether, a fish jumped out of water after billions of years, or like... There was nothing until the unconscious body of a creature arose. Now, I want you to take in that the unconscious body of a creature is another way of saying it's like a part of nature, physically separated with itself, but it doesn't know it's separate yet. And that there could have been like what I would think like billion-year like loops of failure in unconscious selfhood. In unconscious selfhood, it's pretty much like, imagine you have a remote control car and you tape the remote control so the car is always going forward, and you leave this remote control car in an environment. Eventually the remote control car would just endlessly interact with reality. It would hit all the walls of the room. So that conditioning could be as if, imagine the remote control car has hit a wall and it just keeps like hitting the wall and it can't go further. That would be a loop of evolutionary failure, where at some evolutionary point the species had to keep trying as if it couldn't surpass that level. So anyways, there was an unconscious world. It's like nobody's there. Then an unconscious self enters, and the unconscious self is the biological position. So evolutionary biology is so important, that to ignore it is dangerous. Do you know? But anyways, I'll continue. This creature had no idea what it was, and like an automated just going forth energy system, it just interacted with the realm until another mysterious event took place in nature. Do you know? Another mysterious circumstances arose, and a creature that was just this unconscious body of a self moving for the first time became a conscious self. The conscious self means the activation of the mind. Something lit the candle that was the potential of the brain of this entity that we're being. Now that's the 3rd phase of evolution, which is the conscious self. This is where we all are right now. Every human being that could speak, write, and drive a vehicle, this is where the intelligence is now. We are in the third phase where we're just conscious that we are being something in the world. And we have overlaid it with subjective narratives, and so you can say, you know, divinity is a story. Stories are divine. They are spirit casters. I don't know how to tell you. Like, language to me is a lift-off platform for a superior dimension-based attention to just fluctuate, to move. The fourth phase fits into the subtitle of this episode, which the future is world consciousness. This is the era when it's as if we have surpassed the philosophical considerations, you know, the ethical considerations of collective being, like being a collective entity. And so this would be a sort of future where the body of man has become the whole world. Right now, we're experiencing a little part of the world, conscious worldism, or the fourth phase. That's something where I will tell you it's so beyond human subjective, individualized categorization that it's just hilarious. The future has surpassed all that the present fears right now. That's the possible. That's the vision of the advanced. Do you know that means there's never an inability for an eternal might to go forth? That is the nature of eyes in a realm, right? When the eyes that have found themselves in a world begin honoring that world, poetically the spirit of the cosmos animates. You know, your soul begins to sing hidden songs that are like certain moments, synchronistic moments activate. Because humanity, through the philosophical implication that in the future might be a collective system of intelligence, we must cherish and magnificently, incredibly use the human biological potential. It's as if now more than ever, we don't just need to create worlds and worlds, we need to bridge them all together. We are also going into the great compilation phase of information. Compilers are going to have a huge role in how cyberspace is designed, how the architecture of cyberspace is made. There's so many different dimensions affecting the human being that really the truth of advancement just becomes attention to life. Children are born knowing this, and they forget this when memory shackles them to narrative. To be able to watch the moment as the moment is really, this is the most ultimate thing I've discovered. I will tell you that if somebody says, Mr. Within, what's the greatest thing you've realized? I've realized the unknown is unknown, and that's okay. This has been, you know, the freedom of, you know, the dreaming mind. It's usually nothingness. That means an energetic creature, a psychological entity fears its own absence, because when it is absent, there is no reference, there is nothing for animate intelligence to hold, there's nothing for intelligence to animate. The concept of a collective life may be daunting, but I would tell you it's probably destined for this species like more than 3,000, 4,000 years from now. I've predicted it 3,600 years from now. There's this book I'm writing, Civilization 2.0, You know, people should uh, attribute that concept to Mr. Within. You know. Sometimes I think about what other purpose can the mind have other than to express. You know, the ancient sages would say that there's pretty much two things you can do in life. You can trust it or you can distrust it. And it's as if, how do we get 8 billion inner realms to be able to, how do we get 8 billion advanced human beings that have climbed out of their inner realms and have noticed the edge of the outer realms? The honor of the body is to implement the most efficient strategy. The honor of the mind is to create the most efficient strategy. You know, to me, my metaphysics has a sort of, this is how I like classify it to myself, where my biological physical body is like a soldier. My subjective non-physical mind is like the commander. And that which is aware of both and is watching the both, the general, is like the soul. You know? And when the soldier fails, the commander comes forth. Do you know? It's as if people get smart in emergencies. But when the commander fails, that is when, what you say, where the general comes in to remind the commander of why it's there. Right? It's as if deep down the mind knows what it is and it knows what the world is. But to the inner witness, it's as if like it's another way of saying there is multiple minds in place. The body has its own intelligence, and behind your eyes, your imagination, based on how you have received and positioned memories in your psyche, it displays like that, you know. It's so remarkable to me that we are not realizing how mysterious it is that human beings are born, and due to their genetical design, right, due to their DNA, or whatever, whoever they are or whatever they make decisions that eventually narrow out in some position, influencing the whole thing. It's as if the person thinks about it, is the world a great place because I exist? Or is the world a great place because I don't exist? You know, it's like, which one? Kind of like, you know, the anguish of an immortal philosopher. I mean, honestly, like, I'm being just poetic, guys. When I say there's a hidden heaven behind your eyes, I'm just saying that people don't know what the mind is, so they have given up on the exploration. You know, it's as if people don't realize they have been born in this life to meet themselves, but not their subjective self, your true self, which is another way of saying an intelligence returned to its original state. That is like that's true spirituality. The original is flawless. The hidden heaven is the ability of the mind to see efficient possibilities in an efficient system and be those efficient possibilities. Can you imagine, like a group of, like in a sci-fi scenario, a group of extraterrestrials in the clouds, like talking about the human species and being like, yo, what's wrong with these human beings? Why aren't they advancing? Right? And imagine all the extraterrestrials are brainstorming, trying to figure out why human beings aren't advancing. And then suddenly one of the extraterrestrials is like, guys, they're shy. Our greatness is postponed due to, the past's expectation of the future projecting shy, universes. This is like, sometimes, I think every person on the planet should accept the sort of silliness of the existential situation, and then through a relaxed focus, it's like pretty much the role of human beings in the outer realm is find something you can advance and advance it in the honor of the future. There's no greater service. Like, I don't know, there's no greater honor. Like, anybody who has ever had honor, they have cared how the journey of consciousness enters its future. You see, to me, I'll never understand why the samurai did seppuku, but at the same time, it's as if a conscious decision brings with itself a force of pre-assumed freedom. I don't know how to tell you. It's as if the person has to choose, right? It's like the purpose of attention and the purpose of consciousness is to provide a domain. It's like providing, a worldview. And now, like, why is an unknown attention through a biochemical machine looking out through a projection of reality? Dear listeners, there is a huge chance that we have been multidimensional beings from the beginning. And the hidden heaven is the full ability of the mind. And every human being should attempt the great problem. What is the best case scenario for the human species? Every person's mind and eyes, they harbor its own hidden universe. Pretty much the meaning of life is another way of saying what is the purpose of sight. Why do we have minds? Why does the whole world want to become conscious of itself, and why does the human being have the capacity to fathom the void? To me, emptiness is like the most spookiest concept in secular perception. To me, nothing like emptiness is another way of saying it's like something that isn't anything at all, Every human being has to use their inner realms and come to an advanced vision of the outer realms and live in that inner realm until the outer realms has matched or presented, the possibility. It's another way of saying we're going to live ahead of our time, and because we're going to live ahead of our time, the concept of time is psychologically going to evolve for us quickly. It's another way of saying that a creature lost in its own story stepped out of the simulation to recognize that the presence of nature is infinite manifestation, it's infinite ability. The universe is acting like an eternal being. The manifestation of this whole cosmic activity, it's the behavior of an eternal. It's the behavior of the unconditional. It's as if change is the only eternal thing in the room. And change has to be, and you have to have the polarity of the changeless. You see, there is something behind our eyes that swims through, oceans of memory to be a personality, and then there is something behind our eyes that is the ocean. The person thought they were a thought. Just take that in. This is what civilization was. The story, like people are telling themselves that they are thoughts, and a thought's thinking another thought. It's like the most bizarre, sort of hallucination, right? It's like the species has to honor natural humanism and has to honor metaphysical probability and possibility. If there was like let's say astrophysicist, right, and imagine a student asked this astrophysicist about aliens, and imagine the astrophysicist, was one who was living in honor of an advanced civilization, and this astrophysicist would look at this kid and be like, act as if aliens are already here. How would you contact them as a scientist? What methods are there, And it's like a novelist and a quantum theorist sitting beside each other in a airplane, right? And it's as if, the novelist talks about the worlds he has created, and so does the quantum physicist, theorist. You see, I'm just trying to say that imagination, it's like it's a paradoxical situation, right? Where it's either reality, either imagination is not real or reality is being imagined. If you start causally as a mind, then you're a body, right? So it's another way of saying like some people are free before they enter an illusion, right? Imagine Earth is a room, and when you enter this room, you forget who you were in other rooms. Now, the enlightened are those people who they remember who they are, what they are, regardless of where they are, or again, who they are. You see, it's as if you enter the room realizing the memory you reached was a universal memory. Guys, I don't know what this sound is. It's coming from outside. It's probably pretty loud for the listeners, but this is the karma of the moment. What is there to say? What is there really for one man to say? To me, I summarize all my philosophies into one word: advance, with an exclamation point. And all caps. Advancement is poetically, the royal intelligence of the cosmos. It's all about, imagine if the species was like this one giant person, and this one giant person had to make a choice. The more fragmented the psychology of a species is, pretty much it's another way of saying the less human beings care about being human and the honor that comes with being a human. A heart that has ignored the future has broken itself without knowing. So many people speak about love. I have heard too many, saints be like, it's all about love and oneness, and it's as if really, can we say it is love to not love the future? Do you know? In religions, they say God is the all-loving, all-merciful, which means the mercy has been applied to all dimensions of reality. It's another way of saying that there is an unborn freedom, and then it's as if life is a dream. to me, if I was to energetically explain why I'm saying, like sharing these words with the audience, I would say energetically there's no reason. When one actually shifts and pilots their attention through direct experience, their ideology is in the background. But when the person actually, it's kind of, okay, let me tell you this. When a person is running, imagine in a marathon, direct experience is active and thoughts are like following behind. Now imagine a person who sits down. When a person sits down, it's another way of saying they're actually out of their body. Like the body is being paused and the mind is moving faster than the body. Some people meditate and they think that they shouldn't have thoughts. That's not the proper approach. The proper approach is that when you meditate, you're watching and witnessing the content of your mind, and eventually you notice the rhythm and the speed of the content of your mind, and eventually you discover what is a natural phenomenon in the inner realms and what is unnatural in the inner realms. The Logos told me early on that behind every person's eyes, there are libraries, and these libraries can be released. Inspiration and the concept of importance. To me, greatness devoid of importance is non-existent. Because life is meaningless playfulness until a universal purpose suddenly flies into the moment. Futurists have such an important role. Like, I don't know how to tell you this, but all those human beings who care to fathom and share their probabilities, their visions for an advanced civilization, like, this is one of my dreams, guys. Like, this is something I really hope I get to do in this lifetime, create this advanced center. Like, I want to create the greatest research project on the nature of the human being on Earth. Do you know? No longer will the species fear the idea of the soul. No longer will the species fear the possibility of unknown intelligence moving prior to our definitions on it. How else can I say? For a limited time, ability has been granted to the human species. Right now, there isn't global war. Like, some countries are doing some messed up shit, but really there isn't global war. It's as if, like, people are watching too much TV to start wars. Wars in the future are just gonna be video game combats, Cyberspace is really the titan Mr.Within would like to release on savages. Imagine there was a technology in the cosmos, in civilization, an advanced civilization, and an advanced civilization would be so advanced that everybody would have complete freedom. Like, walking everywhere would feel as comfortable as walking anywhere, How would a fearless force approach the world? How would the best self of the species reveal itself? We are living at that point where the ego is on the shoulder of a giant, and the giant is the nature of the presence of human intelligence. Our intelligence is present as being. And what is being in this intelligence is how the free will has something to choose from. It's as if, like, it's information is accumulated by the brain, and then that information, it's as if there's an inner viewer making a decision on what happens to that the information, and the decision of the interviewer, which another word for it is intent, that is what shapes the karma of the moment. You can say karma is another way of saying that it's like you enter a portal and you go to the other side of the portal and then you step out of the portal. Karma doesn't belong to shape, it just is the shape moving. There is a freedom that is inconceivable, and this freedom that is inconceivable is pulling every psychological entity in the realm towards an analysis. It's as if, if somehow people on the planet wonder, just think about what an advanced civilization would look like, and even greater, they write a book on it or they share their great work to the advanced civilization. Eight billion puzzle pieces, and the puzzle pieces have to move themselves in the proper position. The purpose of communication is to reveal the inner realms to the outer realms. The purpose of existence is for the outer realms to reveal to the inner realms. In front of your eyes, you're a student of the cosmos. Behind your eyes, you're the teacher. Freedom is instantaneous for the wise, and the wise don't even have a concept of wisdom. It's just abidance by will. In an advanced civilization, the psychology of the human being will have so many levels of freedom unlocked that it cannot suffer anymore, which is a hilarious way of saying the species in the future is going to be too smart to suffer. It's as if world peace means internally 8 billion peaceful worlds need to coexist, and externally one peaceful world can be permitted. It's remarkable. In front of our eyes, the world turns us. Behind our eyes, we turn the world. We are ultimately unknown attention piloting through known planes of existence. There is a hidden genius to every force of life. You know, I find the great polymaths in history, they understood this. There was a singular truth to the ability of multiple dimensions. As one actually becomes acquainted with their true nature in mystical thought, it's as if abilities arise. These abilities become capabilities of the inner realm to free itself from outer realm conditions. Now, then the whole thing happens is that how much is, as it's like a being that has seen the truth of reality, how much is it choosing to be a thought? To me, every person has to practice the art of letting go. This is something that nature teaches us. But at the same time, it's like the advantage of having memories is the advantage of being able to internally analyze many modalities to a singular self. The mind is a mysterious, uncharted territory. You know, everybody should, like Carl Jung, be caring to map the unconscious, the collective unconscious. This is the great endeavor of psychology. You know, all retiring psychologists must like just go towards that. Philosophers, on the other hand, philosophy really is another way of saying before people had notebooks they could pass down the generations, it was vocal. Honest speech was the purest source of information. It's like before notebooks or anywhere to write the information, if speech was dishonest, it would be as if like it would be an illusion. Honest speech is another way of saying effortless abidance with how nature's you know. And truth may be beyond nature, right? Like if we're truly an unknown multidimensional being, maybe this unknown multidimensional being shouldn't have too much of an obsessive desire on just being a biological entity. You know, it's like the mysteries of the mind being superior than the body kind of suggests that the future generations have to choose how they want to define attention. That means the clash between materialism and immaterialism never made sense. The subjective and objective relationship was way more fascinating. To me, when somebody says, you know, I had an ego, or you know, I was being egoic, but like I'm telling you, the ego you are never the ego. The ego is the byproduct of how attention has unconsciously reacted and consciously responded to the moment. There's no such thing. We have never been thoughts. We have been the unknown, free will viewer that makes the decision before the thought lands. Right? It's as if light hits an object, enters our eyes, and behind our eyes, it hits an inner subjective context to the world. It's as if behind our eyes, language is shaping us. But there's something more. The dance of the hidden heavens, again, is just the greatest effort of all conscious life forms. The future is world consciousness. The species should not fear dehumanization. It should try to understand it and then revalue the importance of nature. Nature is ultimate. Like, to me, it's like to any transcendentalist or metaphysicist, or let's say some person who believes in like spirit, like, you know, the unknown world of spirits, it's as if be human first. That means attain human liberation, then pilot your attention into other states. It's as if the headquarters of the free will is the idea of the natural biological human being. Anyways, I've written here activating the gift of the gods. This is post-destiny deserving, you know? A human being that is liberated does not think about enlightenment, because enlightenment is the quality of the realm. It's how the world was standing before you were standing. You know, that's really what enlightenment is. Once you realize how the world was standing, was dehumanized, singular, intelligent, universal event, or eventhood. You see, there is a dehumanized way where everything is being alive at once, and then there's a humanized way where its circumstances and language has led to a sort of mass intellectual multidimensionalism. Right? It's as if the person's like, I don't believe in the idea of God. Then the person's like, wait a minute, if I don't believe in the idea of God, which is the subject, then how am I believing in the idea of myself, which is the subject? You see, there's something more, and the species has feared, you know, to look into as what if there was a subjective evolution. Every person's eyes are the messenger of a hidden world. If the person feels they deserve to exist, their inner realms deserve to exist, the importance of that becomes the spirit of inspiration. It's as if when the armies of chaos and order listen to the armies of the future. Imagine there's an alien, aliens are about to, like, you know, these thuggish aliens are about to invade, like, humanity, and suddenly, like, a lawyer from the future, time-traveling lawyer comes and says, due to galactic law, you know, you're not allowed to interfere, and the thug aliens leave, you know. You know, I'm trying to tell you, like, the context of the world requires to be extended, and when individual free will explores the unknown, when we become multidimensional explorers of the nature of reality, the species has succeeded on so many levels. The future generations will start off thinking that the past generations didn't care, but the more you actually live in this realm, the more you see the genius of the past echoing into the future. There's some things that have happened in the history of humanity where there are events that you read in history books and you think, okay, that event stopped, it happened and it stopped. But no, some things, the implication, the way they influenced the psychology of humankind, it's just fascinating. You know, it's as if the human mind is possessed by every moment of human life. The intelligence of the species can imply a collective mind where what is the true intelligence, what we're calling the soul, is actually a field of activity. It's as if everything is moving in the knowing of a mind, which when it realizes the body is hovering in emptiness, it discovers its unknown viewing nature. That unknown viewing nature, you have been activated at that point. Pretty much you listen to your heart of hearts, and then you choose the world you live in. And that is how you pilot through civilization 1.0 until the great, I've called them advanced communicators and pilots of consciousness arrive. For me, it's as if a great crew will arrive in the future. Many. Do you know, teams of, like, it's as if, like, do you know what I'm saying? It's as if the person saw something smart happen for the species and was incredibly overjoyed. Now imagine you are seeing teams. You're seeing, it's as if, like, the species has realized it deserves more, way better than, it can outdo itself what it has forgotten, right? It's as if, like, the future wants to wake up the past to its true potential, not realizing that the past has no other way to go forth aside by doing it. right? It's as if an advanced civilization is not we just solved all the problems of the outer realms. An advanced civilization is the most advanced, honorable thing that a mind in a living universe can do. It is serving the ultimate position. That means it's as if this is why to me it would be like when a king, uh, you know, bows to the mystery of consciousness. It's as if that is a great king, a very great king, right? It's another way of saying really what the king of humanity is the story of the human being. We are being ruled by how far we've looked at things so far. The era of an advanced humanity is approaching. And so, shall we see 8 billion hidden heavens dance? Shall we see just like as if 8 billion commanders on the battlefield of the void, in some sense, a superior? Guys, it brings tears to my eyes. The future is going to be so great that it's as if suffering right now really doesn't exist. Like any suffering is nothing compared to the achievement of the future. You know, we have allowed ourselves to fathom extinction, but we have not allowed ourselves to fathom the opposite. How dare, you know, a creature in the void convince itself too soon? When 8 billion lions roar, the might of universes is revealed. Advancement is the true essence of conscious being. It's as if what would an enlightened individual know, an enlightened neighborhood know, an enlightened nation know? What would an enlightened world, what would an enlightened species do? What would a massive collective psychological freedom lead to? The task of every human being is to reach further than any human being. Advance, that is the great strategy. Go as far as you can, not a couple steps ahead. Try to fathom infinite steps ahead to recognize the philosophical breaking of the simulation of what a world means. Like when you find that there's something unknown going on, the knowledge feels like the noise. Hidden heavens deserve to dance in the outer realms. The greatness of the species is waiting for itself. Do you know, imagine there's a universe where everybody is a martial artist and everybody has their own type of martial arts. Now imagine when it comes to inner realm piloting, when it comes to being an advanced communicator, as I use the term. Civilization 2.0 is the great victory of the species. The greatest victory of the species is another way of saying we have found the resolution. The purpose of physical life is to serve the advancement of the realm, and the purpose of the inner life is to design the future. That's the greatest way we can defend the future. It's as if like Olympic torchbearers, and one torchbearer goes as far as it can and then passes on the torch. The same amount of energy it takes to think something isn't great is the same amount of energy it takes to think it's great. It's just a choice. Greatness is the choice of a species to bless its own future. It's as if we don't have time not to consider the greatest position of human existence. That greatness it's as if, sometimes when I give these talks, I feel like I can touch the future behind my eyes, but in front of my eyes it is so much ahead in time, which is ridiculous. Like 3,600 years is like it's like a soul in transit. The pilots of consciousness are directing the outer context of reality, and the advanced communicators are, in some sense, managing the inner realms of men. There is no, portal of truth or well of truth to point to truth to, really. It's really, to me, it's how well human intelligence got to know its limits. Because at the edge of our limitations, at the edge of our failures, victory stands. Eternity stands. The eternal presence of nature it's just more supreme than any passing thought. Right? Like the body changes, and then the mind changes, and then there's something noticing the body and mind change, and that's pretty much the space. That's like what they call the Atman. And so the unknown inner witness that is observing subjective realities and objective realities, it just reaches a certain point where, to touch shape is to not see how the universe moves before you. Mysticism is very advanced and difficult to me. I feel like I am just carving, digging through a cave. It's as if an unexplored territory of human perception. There's so much. There has been a categorization mistake of the value of the mind in civilization. That being civilization 1.0 felt it didn't deserve its future. Civilization 2.0 it is the future. The future is the human being becomes fully mobile. Like there will be a victory against gravity, and anti-gravity technologies will be everywhere. That would be a great phase of human history. And then eventually the victory against time, which is pretty much, like, what else can I say? Human beings did what they could before they returned to the void. It's as if the spirit of humanity is the closest thing to the soul, like a soul of a species. The motivations of every individual member, human being on this planet, is moving this, let's say, the spirit of civilization. And so just by shifting your intent, you could have honored the future. Just feeling that the species deserves its greatness, that is like an internal victory. That's like, time travelers would have no reason to come back anymore. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was interesting.